Hey everyone, it's Primer. While I'm still working on part 2 of the Lalo execution guide, I wanted to talk about 3 big myths about Sui Lalo. And hopefully, after you watch this video, I'll be able to clarify some of the misunderstandings about this composition that I see quite frequently. So, let's jump right into myth number 1. Our first myth is that the Sui Lalo must be a rotational Lalo. And so a common misconception is that if we were to imagine a base as a perfect circle, the Sui portion would carve out some fraction of the base, right? Maybe some like a pizza slice, like so. And then that would mean we'd be left with some ring or semi-ring in the base that we can just follow around, maybe counterclockwise or clockwise. And although this is one possible plan, if this is one way to do Sui Lalo, it's not the only way. And so, more generally, the only prerequisite for a Lalo is the funnel shape, right? This is the shape we've talked about a lot in other videos. If you want to check them out, feel free to do so. I elaborate more about them there. But again, it's only the funnel shape we care about. We don't need the base to be rotational Lalo. And this means that we can even use the funnel shape through the core of the base, not around it, or maybe even some other offset entry, right? And so this expands the possibilities for our Sui Lalo a lot more, rather than just restricting ourselves to this possibly rotational plan. And so to give a quick example, maybe we can have some sort of base, and again, usually the shape of base is not completely round, and so it's very important to pay attention to what exactly the base looks like. So maybe we'll draw something like this, and maybe this shape is a bit too odd. Something a little more round, I guess. And the idea is bases always have dead zones, especially at Channel 13, right? Areas of the base with no defenses, and you might have to take a while to get used to spotting them, but they severely affect the pathing of the base. So maybe we could have a dead zone right here. So again, when we're trying to look for Sui plans, we're not just looking to carve out a section, we're just trying to find a way to figure out a nice Lalo, even if that means it's not rotational. So in this case, if we have a dead zone like this, perhaps what we could do is we could Sui for a section of the base, maybe here. And if we take this out, right, and maybe we can clear a few of these buildings here, then that already leaves us with a very nice funnel shape, right? If you can visualize something like this. And so, of course, all it takes here is a shape, and notice that the Sui is not taking out some sort of like pizza-shaped fraction of the base. But since the base is shaped a bit irregularly, we can utilize this special shape of the base to help find a funnel shape. And so in this case, notice that it's not even a perfect fit, right? There are still areas of the base right here that are not dealt with, right? They're outside the funnel shape. But that's totally okay, right? Because with Lalo, we can control the pathing of the loons with secondary groups. And so all we need to do is just send secondary groups of loons on this side, on this side, to push everything in and keep everything in a funnel shape. And so even if the base itself does not lend itself to a perfect funnel shape, we can address the areas of the base that are outside of funnel shape with secondary groups of loons and just push everything in. And so maybe the best way to put this into practice is to look at an example. So if we take a look at this space, maybe we can quickly draw its shape. Again, notice how it's not perfectly circular, and so the shape of this space will pretty much define how you're going to Lalo. And of course, we also have dead zones, which means I will be drawing some of the stuff here just to indicate where the dead zones are. And once we draw this, my plan was to Sui this side, take out the RC, and use the RC to take out the stuff here. And we still don't have a perfect funnel shape yet, but if I can manage to blimp the town hall, right? Maybe blimp the town hall with a rage. This means that we can draw some sort of funnel shape like this. All right, and then just send the loons in through the shape. And so again, this goes straight through the core of the base, which also has the added benefit that you can warden through the core and warden through all the raider bombs. Again, take a look how this funnel shape does not account for the whole shape of the base. In fact, at 6 o'clock, there are some defenses that are still not part of this funnel shape. But that's okay, because we have secondary groups of loons. So in this case, we can just plan to send some loons here and here to push everything in. And so, although this is not a rotational Lalo, this plan should work pretty well. So maybe we'll take a look and see how this plan goes by watching the replay of the space. Sending the Sui in. Maybe I'll fast forward this. Raging the Sui just to get a little more value. And we're just going to continue dropping the RC to take out the multi. And unfortunately, the RC doesn't quite get the multi due to the skeleton trap. So we might have to adjust a little bit. But again, what we're doing is now we've set up most of our Sui at least. And I'm actually going to send the blimp at the same time as the Lalo. Not first, because then they can kind of tank for each other a bit. But as you can see, as the blimp is raged up, now everything starts getting converged in the core. I'm immediately dropping groups at 6 o'clock to push everything in, right? So now, as per our plan, we've got our main group going through the car, and then our secondary groups coming at 6 o'clock. The multi stays up, which makes this attack a bit more close than it should be, but I still get the triple, which is what that matters, and so we can go on to myth number 2. Our second myth is that the Slammer is the strongest siege for Sui Lalo. Actually, personally, I used a Slammer maybe 40% of the time. I blimped the Town Hall around 30% of the time, and I even blimped some defense like a Scatter or Inferno for pathing around 30% of the time. It seems like a waste, but it's not. Although a blimp cannot directly take down defenses, what it can do is directly drop the CC onto any location of the base. And so, in addition to the drop damage, a blimp gives you control, right? Lalo is less of a power than it's about pathing. So if you're able to clear out some section of the base exactly where you want and form that funnel shape, that is much preferred to having an unpredictable Slammer. For this base, my plan was to Sui the compartments at 6, 5, 4, and 3, and then Lalo from 7 to 9, blimping the Town Hall. And so, a common thing for people to do is to just use a Slammer with the Lalo and then Warden ability over the Town Hall. I'd like to make a case for doing something else. What I recommend is actually, for many of the cases, is instead of using a Slammer, what you can do is blimp the Town Hall during your Lalo, and so you can blimp with the Tome. And so the reason being, you can use your Tome at the core of the base. Oftentimes, the Town Hall itself does not have much DPS around it, except the Town Hall Blast. And so, the Warden Tome feels kind of wasted, especially since the loons are slowed. But take a look here. If I could Warden over the 2 scatters and the multi, that would be a lot more value, especially since there's probably a lot of raider bombs. So in this case, I can use the blimp for the Town Hall, which by the way is also a lot safer, and the Warden ability is a lot more useful. The loons are at full speed, right, not affected by the Giga Blast. It's safe, and we maximize the value, right? We maximize how much DPS is cancelled through the Warden ability. And so just as a general tip, in these heavier DPS sections of the base, look for that really nice Warden Tome, and it'll make your loons feel much more invincible. The second possible use case for a blimp is a bit like a Yeti bomb, and this is where you directly target like a scatter or a multi, both for the value but also for the pathing. And so I'll use the space as an example to show what I mean. In this case, I'm going to Sui the Town Hall and then start a Lalo from the 2, 3 o'clock side. And so again, this part is not very important. Maybe I'll fast forward it. And again, as soon as you take a look at what value my Sui gets, we can examine the pathing for Lalo. And as you can see, maybe we can draw what the shape looks like. Maybe somewhat like this. And you can see it's a little wide, right? It's a little wide. And so if we wanted to force a funnel shape into this, we may have to draw something like this and here. And this would mean we'd have to force a lot of secondary groups to take out all this stuff, which, as you can imagine, can be quite difficult, right? You don't want to be putting your secondary groups across so much DPS, because when there's the scatter and the multi, so much stuff, you can't really expect the secondary group to really just plow through all of that, especially without the help of the Grand Warden ability or passive aura. So in this case, what I recommend doing is you can actually use the blimp, right? This is where the blimp is perfect. Instead of using secondary groups, what if we just dropped our blimp right here? And the key is we do it at the same time with the Lalo. So imagine a blimp opening up while the main group of Lalo is traveling, and so these groups can kind of join up together. And we already have the multi and the expo down. And again, since the loons are cross tanking, you're not really swagging the blimp, right? The 5 loons and the dragon pretty much stay alive through the rest of the raid as they merge onto the main group of loons. So if you watch what I do here, using, again, dropping our main group first, across 1 to 3 as quickly as I can. Dropping the hounds, loons, and warden. This part is fine. Now watch for my blimp, right? Pay attention to my blimp at 5 o'clock. And so if I used a slammer here, it wouldn't be very useful. A slammer would not get very far. It would not go into the multi, right? A slammer just does not have enough health to reach it. But with a blimp, I can directly take out all the stuff, and boom, the pathing is set. Everything now goes in as planned. We've finished forming our funnel shape, so our main group does not split and take some weird pathing. And so I really recommend trying this out. It feels a bit counterintuitive, but I definitely think it'll be very helpful. And so just as a note, right, you might ask, okay, then when do I use a slammer? In this case, I'd say use a slammer if, one, you can directly take out a scatter or multi by itself, and you're sure it's not going to die while it's there. You know it's going to take it out completely. Or if the funnel shape was already perfect, your secondary groups don't really need much anyways. And so in this case, you can just use the slammer because there's nowhere else to use the blimp. Our third and final myth relates to the Sui portion of the Sui Lalo. And this is, many people think that you Sui for value, right? You Sui, can I get a scatter shot? Can I get the town hall? How much value can I get? With a Sui Lalo though, since you've already got so many Lalo spells and a huge Lalo comp, what matters is not the power, right? How much base is left, but more the pathing. Again, it's all about the pathing. And so in this case, notice how all the enemy heroes are 12 o'clock, the town hall and the scatters are 12 o'clock. So you might think, this is perfect. Great place to Sui at 12 o'clock. 2 reasons why I would not do that. Number 1, your Sui probably going to die. There's just too much DPS. Why risk it? Number 2, if I Sui from 6 o'clock, even if you pardon my atrocious funneling skills right now, notice how the pathing is absolutely perfect. Right, first, the little DPS means the Sui gets a lot more defenses, which helps with pathing. And second, it's a perfect shape that's carved for the Lalo. And again, you might ask, wait, but now there's so much DPS. How is the Lalo going to get through 2 scatters in a town hall? Well, if the pathing is there, it's totally fine. And in this case, it's especially good because we can just tome through everything here. Right? If I just directly send a few loons for the eagle right now, which is fine. There's no DPS on an eagle, so the loons will take it. And I can just spam all the loons, dropping loons in a bit of a wall to avoid the wizard splash damage. But you get the idea. The pathing is so good that even with all that stuff, I can just rage through it, double rage, double poison, drop my headhunters for the RC and the queen. And despite all these things that you feel like, this is all anti-Lalo, it's really not. It's really not. So this is not the cleanest Lalo, I'll admit. Right? Like the tornado kind of messed me. The rage spells and the warden were not great. But it doesn't matter. The pathing is so good. The headhunters take in the queen and the RC. Right? That's why headhunters are pretty overpowered, because your Sui doesn't need to take out the heroes anymore. You've got headhunters. Right? So once you have the pathing, the base is wrecked. Again, despite the not so clean Lalo, this base is still a triple. And so we'll take a look at another example of this. And again, you see, ooh, both heroes and the town hall at 9 o'clock. Again, don't look for that stuff when you're looking for a Sui. Look for pathing. And although we could potentially get the RC and the Queen, it doesn't matter. At Town Hall 13, we've got Headhunters, we've got Skelly Spells, we've got a Dragon. We've got plenty to deal with it. And even if all else failed, we've got a Rage and Minions, or Rage and Lava Pups. So we've got so many ways to deal with enemy heroes, so I would recommend to stop putting it as a priority when you're suing. It doesn't matter. All that matters is pathing. So we take a look at our Sui from 6 o'clock here. I'm actually planning a pretty ambitious Sui. Again, my funneling skills are really subpar. Today, I'm not sure why. Right, I'm very lucky my Queen actually goes to the right and not to the left. But besides that, right, we can funnel everything into 3 o'clock, and my goal is to actually double wall break to get the multi. So if I can get all of that, as you can imagine, the pathing is absolutely insane. Using the Skelly spell to tank for the single. Again, a great addition to a Sui Lalo, the Skelly spell. But either way, we're going to get a ton of value. Right? And imagine if we tried to Sui at 9 o'clock. Those expos, all the DPS would wreck my Sui in 2 seconds. I would barely get any value. But in this case, I get so much value with my Sui. I'm able to get the wall breaks in. And my Queen, since the RC is able to take out the Arch Tower, my Queen will path inside to the Bomb Tower, the Sweeper, the Builder Hut, and then the multi. Which is again perfect. And again, I don't even have my Skelly spells anymore for the RC and the Queen. That's fine. I've got 2 Rages, I've got 3 Hounds for the Lava Pups, and I've got 2 Headhunters. So I'm not worried at all. All I just need to focus on is have a decent Lalo, and this should be a triple. And so again, just starting my Lalo, using a Slammer to directly target a Scatter. In this case, I felt a Slammer was justified because you could take out the Scatter in this case for a Slammer, so why not? Let's just do it. Okay, so as I roll the rest of this replay, maybe one last tip for Suis is you might feel that the Lalo is the most important part of the Sui Lalo. Honestly, I think the Sui is equally as important. Oftentimes, an attack fails not because of the Lalo, but because your Sui didn't get the necessary value. And so focus on, number 1, actually funneling your Sui correctly. If you're not funneling your Sui correctly, as you kind of see, I'm not doing too well right now, it's going to screw your raid. And number 2, I didn't know how much value a Sui gets. Will a 2 skeletons or an ice golem be enough to get the value you want? Alright, so that concludes today's video. But stay tuned because I will have part 2 of the Lalo execution guide coming out soon, and I've also got a few other video ideas in the making. So I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, come on. Oh, yeah. Well, I tried to tell you so. Yes, I did. But I guess you didn't know. As they said, the story goes. Baby, now I got the flow. Cause I knew it from the start. Baby, when you broke my heart, that I had to come again and show you that I'd win. You lied to me. All those times I said that I loved you. You lied to me. Yes, I tried. Yes, I tried. You lied to me. Even though you know I'd die for you. You lied to me. Yes, I cried. Yes, I cried. Turn up the man. Let's turn up the man. Come on. Turn up the man. Oh my God. You know that I've been here. I am. Turn up the man. Once again. Turn up the man. Top of the world. Turn up the man. Watch my flow. You know that I've been here. I go. So I'm back up in the game, running thanks to keep my swine, letting all the people know that I'm back to run the show. Cause what you did, you know was wrong, and all the nasty things you done. So baby, listen carefully while I sing my comeback song. You lied to me, cause she said she'd never turn on me. You lied to me, but you did, but you did. You lied to me. All this pain you said I'd never feel. You lied to me. But I do,